do a little sum for me. You can divide 2,660 2660 by 157. Answers in the postcard, please. That's not rhetorical, it's actually not supposed to do it. Anybody want to go?
1.6.
1.6. Any advance in 1.6? Are you happy with that?
Can't find my calculator.
Calculator. By 50. Okay, so 1.6, 50. Anybody want to confirm that? I've only got 15 minutes, I better get on with this. Do you remember at school we used to do long division? It's quite complicated, it's quite a clunky exercise. Carrying things down, carrying things over. That's a classic example of a skill now that we are delegating to our calculators or our phones. So to be honest with you, it's almost a skill that's being lost. A good thing or a bad thing. But I want to just talk a little bit about the role of technology and how we're actually abdicating or delegating our skills to technology. I agree a fair bit with what Nick said earlier, is that I think the world is probably screwed and technology probably has a role to play in that. But I also think that technology can have a role in help mitigating against that screwiness, if you want. Or it might at least help us to manage that decline more efficiently. So basically, I mean, I've been teaching for about 15 years, and what's happening in terms of when I'm teaching is that attention spans are going down. People are doing their emails or their blogs on their Apples and so on, as they're doing right now, actually. And there's a great big question behind it, and I won't use many slides, but to slightly paraphrase Banksy, the question that most people are asking these days is that, which is so what? You've got to get to the point really quickly and really early these days. What's happening, I think, in terms of how people are taking in information, in learning or in general, is that we're moving from considered users to trigger or impulse users. So in the old days, people would be brought into a classroom and drilled with loads of information and then pushed back out to actually apply or use it. Or even in e-learning, for example, that transposed that model into an online environment where you lock yourself away in the office or in the room, go through a 40-minute program, kind of get yourself all teed up with content and information, and go out and try and use some of that. Now, what's happening in the world of so what is that there's a massive amount of content retention decay. People are losing so much of that stuff. London Business School, where I work sometimes, estimate up to 90% of content loss over the course of a year, regardless of how good that original moment of skill or knowledge dissemination was. That's a big thing. It's a big thing for people making investments in learning. Because if you're spending billions of years a country on learning and there's 90% loss, then I'm not going to ask you to do the maths again. It's quite a bit of loss. But I think technology can also help in that regard as well. So we're moving from considered users to impulse users. And what I mean by an impulse user is somebody who says, oh, I've got something coming up I need to do, it's important. I'm going to try and draw down or pull down a piece of content to support me and get myself information-wise, but also attitudinally or emotionally into the right space to do that. Does that make sense? Moving from considered to impulse users. And I think the learning business and the skills business has to change accordingly and get rid of the production model. An example of the production model is if you think of it in terms of harvest time, where you bring in all the corn and all the stuff. I'm not really a farmer, so it's going to be a bit out of line here. You bring in all the stuff you're going to need for the winter into a big warehouse or storehouse, and you work off that throughout the course of it. It's your knowledge that you work off and chip away at it. But what that's forgetting really is that the moment of application, the context of you applying your skills, is further away from you. And now, because of the moving from considered to impulse users, there's a loss of control or design over that. What I mean by that is if you don't know the bit that you've lost out of your mind, you don't know the bit you've got left to actually apply to the skill. So what I'm saying is in the production model, there isn't a lot of emphasis put on how you use that skill per se, because there's a chronological gap between the 2 points. And this is where I think technology can really help, and particularly mobile technology. Because if we move to a market-based look at where how we're going to use that information or knowledge becomes the centre of balance, as it were, then technology can be used to draw or pull that down, and particularly mobile phones. So what am I saying? Well, the point I'm making is that the learning or the knowledge business could really make use of mobile video, for example, to teach ourselves or reteach ourselves, to get ourselves back intellectually, emotionally into the right space. And to a degree, it's parallel to us delegating or abdicating our long divisional skills to the calculators and mobile phones. It's just moved on a couple of notches. It's actually quite a big move, and it has got a big, big role to play for people in design. Because you now have a different screen to play with. You've got 2 to 3 minutes, and you've got to pack it with stuff. And if it's done cleverly, yes, it reminds you what you ought to know. For example, if you're in a sales briefing, to get back into the mode in terms of the product you're trying to sell, the features of it. But also attitudinally or emotionally, to get yourself back in the zone again. Because one of the problems with infomania and the sickness that Nick diagnosed earlier is that we don't really have time to concentrate anymore. We find it very, very hard to focus on one thing. We've got ourselves set up to be interrupted all the time, so we don't think linearly anymore. But technology can also help get us back or readjust or shunt us back into that zone again. That makes sense? Do you agree or disagree with that? So there's a big move that we could do then, and Helen's going to pick up on mobile technology in a minute and how it can help specifically. But I think that it can be one of the solutions to the problems of infomania, to too much stuff going around. Okay? I think it can help us get back into the zone again. So in terms of the design and the role that you guys can play, I think there's a huge opportunity in taking the real estate of the mobile phone, video, slides, text, voiceover, and packing that. You could perhaps look at working with the psychology side of things and neuro-linguistic programming. So you can build in triggers to incite or prompt a response in the user that you're actually after as well. So there's loads of real estate to play with. Point finally I want to make, and this is the iPhone here, which is probably one of the nicest pieces of design you're going to see in this country this year. It's an absolutely gorgeous piece of design and interface. But in fact, I think it's an example of the production mentality. I think this is an old economy piece of hardware, oddly enough. Because when I got it, I was actually very excited and began to play around and use it and so on and so forth. But in fact, there's as much time as gone into designing this to stop you from doing things as to enable you from to do things. So yes, it plays video beautifully, but you try, being an impulse user, to draw down a piece of video onto this when you need just in time. You can't really do it. The management system has been set up to stop you doing it. The intent behind it, of course, is for Apple to collect 10% revenue from each of the mobile operators right around the world. Which is quite a smart business, possibly. And then it's over to the world of hackers to look for all these workarounds. So that's really all I want to say to you, is that I think there's a big shift going on, and I see it when I'm training, because the so what question is being asked increasingly. I get what you're saying, but why should I care? Why should I bother? Or what am I going to do with this? Perhaps philosophically, in deference to what Bill was saying earlier, we're looking at knowledge now as a functional or utilitarian modality. But even within that, we're looking at how can we adjust what we do to take account of that inevitability. And in that regard, I think there's a big opportunity to design content, to sit on phones, that actually bring us back into the room mentally, emotionally, and rationally in order to optimize what's coming up.